What happens when a state senator's wife gets arrested for hit and run, stands in front of Judge Frank Caprio and says, "I'll have you removed from the bench before the end of the week"? This 47-year-old woman is about to learn that threatening a sitting judge comes with criminal contempt charges, an additional $25,000 in fines, and 30 days in jail on top of her original sentence. And when Judge Caprio calls her husband, State Senator Richard Brennan, on speakerphone in open court, the senator's response will end his wife's arrogance and possibly his own political career. In the next 20 minutes, you're going to witness the most devastating courtroom threat backfire in judicial history. Let us know where you're watching from, because what happens next will show you exactly what happens when political power meets a judge who's been on the bench for 35 years and has heard every threat imaginable. October 19th, 2023, 10:30 a.m. Providence Municipal Court sits under cold autumn rain, the kind that makes the old courthouse feel like it's carved from stone and consequence. Inside Courtroom 4, Judge Frank Caprio reviews his morning docket. Case number 2023 CR 9421, State of Rhode Island vs. Victoria Ellen Brennan, hit and run with injuries, leaving the scene of an accident. And a note from the prosecutor that makes the bailiff exchange glances with the court stenographer. Defendant is wife of State Senator Richard Brennan, D. District 7. Expect political pressure. Victoria Brennan enters the courtroom at 10:47 a.m., 17 minutes late, and makes no apology for it. 47 years old, 5'6", wearing a cream-colored Chanel suit that costs more than most people's monthly mortgage payment. Her blonde hair's professionally highlighted and blown out, $400 at a salon earlier this week, based on the perfection of the style. She carries a Hermès Birkin bag worth approximately $35,000. Diamond earrings catch the fluorescent courtroom lights. Her makeup is flawless, applied with the precision of someone who's never had to do it herself. But it's her body language that fills the courtroom with tension. She walks like she's entering a social event she's obligated to attend but finds beneath her, shoulders back, chin up, eyes scanning the room with barely concealed contempt. She doesn't acknowledge the bailiff's instruction to silence her phone. She simply hands the phone to her attorney without looking at him, like passing trash to a servant. Her attorney is Gerald Hutchins, 64 years old, senior partner at Rhode Island's second-largest law firm. He bills $950 per hour and has successfully defended 3 state legislators, 2 federal judges, and 1 congressman. His presence here, in municipal court handling a hit-and-run case, is itself a message. This defendant has serious resources and serious connections. Behind Victoria sits a young aide from Senator Brennan's office, taking notes. The message is clear. The senator's office is watching. The senator's office is paying attention. The senator's office expects certain outcomes. 6 weeks ago, on September 8, 2023, at exactly 2:43 p.m., Victoria Brennan was driving her white Mercedes-Benz S-Class, a $120,000 sedan with every safety feature modern technology can provide, through the streets of Providence's Fox Point neighborhood. She was heading to a fundraiser luncheon for her husband's re-election campaign. She was running late, and according to 3 separate witnesses, she was also on her phone. The intersection of Hope Street and Rochambeau Avenue has a 4-way stop. Security camera footage from the Hope Street diner captures everything with brutal clarity. Timestamp 2:43:17 p.m. Victoria's Mercedes approaches the intersection from the south. She doesn't slow down. She doesn't even tap the brakes. She blows through the stop sign at approximately 42 miles per hour. At that exact moment, Marcus DeSilva is crossing the street in the marked crosswalk. 71 years old, Korean War veteran, retired postal worker who spent 43 years delivering mail in Providence. That afternoon, he's walking his grocery cart home from the market, 2 bags of groceries, including ingredients for dinner he's cooking for his daughter's family that evening. Victoria's Mercedes hits Marcus DeSilva at 42 miles per hour. The physics are simple and horrifying. Marcus is thrown 19 feet. His grocery cart disintegrates. Cans of soup scatter across the intersection. A carton of eggs explodes on the asphalt. Marcus lands hard on his right side. The medical report will later document 3 broken ribs, a fractured hip, a severe concussion, and internal bleeding that nearly kills him. Victoria's Mercedes doesn't stop. Security footage shows her brake lights illuminate for perhaps half a second, just long enough to suggest she felt the impact, and then she accelerates. She drives away. She doesn't call 911. She doesn't check if Marcus is alive. She doesn't slow down at the next intersection. 3 witnesses immediately run to Marcus. 2 are calling 911. 1, a nurse named Patricia Chen, who happened to be having lunch at the diner, begins emergency first aid. Marcus is unconscious. He's bleeding from a head wound. Patricia later tells police she wasn't sure he'd survive. Officer Linda Martinez arrives at 2:49 p.m., 6 minutes after impact. Her body camera captures the scene. Marcus DeSilva is being loaded into an ambulance. His blood is still on the street. His groceries are scattered in a 20-foot radius. Patricia Chen gives Officer Martinez a description. White Mercedes S-Class, newer model, partial plate ending in 847. Driver was a blonde woman in expensive clothes who never even stopped. Officer Martinez runs the partial plate. 3 matches. The third is registered to Victoria Ellen Brennan, 47, of Providence. Address: the most expensive condominium building in the city. Officer Martinez calls for backup and drives to the address. Victoria Brennan is at home when police arrive at 4:17 p.m. Her Mercedes is in the building's parking garage. The front right bumper has a fresh dent and scratched paint. There's a small crack in the windshield that wasn't there that morning. Victoria answers her door wearing yoga clothes and holding a glass of white wine. Officer Martinez's body camera captures the conversation. Mrs. Brennan: I'm Officer Martinez with Providence Police. Were you driving your Mercedes S-Class this afternoon? I'm sorry, who are you? Officer Linda Martinez: were you operating your vehicle today around 2:45 p.m. in the Fox Point area? I don't recall. Victoria takes a sip of wine. Why are you asking? There was a hit-and-run accident at Hope Street in Rochambeau. A pedestrian was seriously injured. Your vehicle matches the description, and your license plate was partially captured on camera. Victoria's expression doesn't change. I think you should speak to my attorney. Mrs. Brennan, a man is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries. If you were involved in this accident, we need to know now. As I said, speak to my attorney, Gerald Hutchins. You can Google him. She starts to close the door. Mrs. Brennan, I'm placing you under arrest for leaving the scene of an accident with injuries. Victoria's composure cracks for the first time. Excuse me? Do you know who my husband is? Yes, ma'am. He's State Senator Richard Brennan. That doesn't change the fact that you're under arrest. This is absurd. I'm calling Richard right now. You're making a huge mistake. He knows the governor. He knows the attorney general. He chairs the Judiciary Committee. Do you understand what that means? Officer Martinez's response is calm and professional. It means he chairs the Judiciary Committee. It doesn't mean you're exempt from arrest. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back. Victoria is arrested at 4:23 p.m. She's taken to the station. She refuses to answer any questions. She makes 3 phone calls, all to her attorney. She posts bail 6 hours later, $50,000, paid with a credit card that has no limit. Judge Caprio enters the courtroom. Everyone stands. Victoria stands slowly, like the gesture is optional. Judge Caprio takes his seat and reviews the file in silence. The courtroom waits. Finally, he removes his glasses, that signature gesture, and looks at Victoria. Mrs. Brennan, do you understand the charges against you? Gerald Hutchins stands before Victoria can respond. Your Honor, Gerald Hutchins for the defense. My client understands the charges, and we are prepared to enter a plea of not guilty. Furthermore, we're filing a motion to dismiss based on... Mr. Hutchins, I asked your client. Judge Caprio's voice is calm but firm. Mrs. Brennan, please answer the question. Victoria stands, adjusting her suit jacket like she's preparing for a photo. Your Honor, I understand that I've been charged with something I didn't do. This entire case is based on a misidentification. My attorney has evidence that... Mrs. Brennan, the question was whether you understand the charges, not whether you agree with them. Do you understand you're charged with hit and run with serious bodily injury and leaving the scene of an accident? I understand that's what I've been accused of. I don't understand why we're wasting the court's time with this when a simple review of the evidence will show. Judge Caprio interrupts gently. Mrs. Brennan, that's what this hearing is for. To review the evidence. Victoria's expression hardens. Your Honor, with all due respect, I think there's been a rush to judgment here because it makes good headlines. State Senator's wife arrested. The media loves that. The prosecutor loves that. But the truth is that no one can definitively prove I was driving that car at that time. The security footage shows your license plate. Partial plate. My attorney has identified 16 vehicles in Rhode Island with plates ending in 847. The footage is grainy. The identification is questionable at best. Judge Caprio looks at the prosecutor. Do you have additional evidence? The prosecutor, David Reyes, stands. Yes, Your Honor. We have the defendant's vehicle with fresh damage consistent with the accident. We have paint transfer that matches the victim's clothing. We have the defendant's own statement that she doesn't recall whether she was driving that afternoon, which suggests possible memory of the event. And we have her subsequent refusal to cooperate with the investigation. Victoria laughs, actually laughs, a short, sharp sound of contempt. Not recalling is not an admission of guilt. I drive every day. I don't memorize my routes. Judge Caprio leans forward. Mrs. Brennan, a man was hit by a car matching yours at a time when you were driving in that area, and your car has damage. Does that not concern you? Your Honor, I'm concerned that this court is allowing political bias to influence what should be a straightforward analysis of insufficient evidence. My husband has made enemies in the state legislature. He's pushed through ethics reform that made a lot of people uncomfortable. And now, conveniently, his wife is being prosecuted on questionable charges right before his re-election campaign. The courtroom erupts in murmurs. Judge Caprio raises his hand for silence. Mrs. Brennan, this court doesn't care about political campaigns. This court cares about the fact that Marcus DeSilva spent 3 weeks in the hospital and will likely never walk without assistance again. That's terrible for Mr. DeSilva, but it doesn't mean I'm responsible. If you're not subscribed, hit that button right now, because what happens next will show you exactly what happens when someone mistakes a courtroom for a political stage and learns the difference between power and authority. Judge Caprio signals for the prosecutor to continue. David Reyes presents the evidence methodically. Security camera footage showing the impact. Witness statements from 3 people who saw the white Mercedes leave the scene. The paint transfer analysis, the damage to Victoria's vehicle. Marcus DeSilva's medical records, broken ribs, fractured hip, concussion, internal bleeding. Throughout the presentation, Victoria sits with her arms crossed, occasionally whispering to her attorney, her expression one of barely concealed boredom. When Marcus DeSilva is wheeled into the courtroom in his wheelchair, Victoria doesn't look at him. She examines her fingernails. Marcus speaks slowly, his voice still weak from weeks in recovery. Your Honor, I don't remember the impact. I remember crossing the street. I remember thinking about dinner with my daughter, and then I woke up in the hospital 3 days later. My daughter told me I'd been asking for my wife. My wife passed away 4 years ago. I was confused for a week. I couldn't remember my own daughter's name. His voice breaks. I still can't walk. The doctors say I might not ever walk normally again, and the person who hit me drove away. They didn't stop. They didn't call for help. They just left me there. Victoria whispers something to her attorney. He shakes his head. She whispers more insistently. He writes something on his legal pad and shows it to her. She pushes the pad away, annoyed. Judge Caprio watches this exchange. Mrs. Brennan, do you have something you'd like to say to Mr. DeSilva? Victoria stands slowly. Your Honor, on the advice of counsel, I decline to make any statement that could be construed as an admission of liability. I'm not asking you to admit liability. I'm asking if you have any compassion for what this man has endured. Victoria's jaw tightens. Your Honor, compassion doesn't determine guilt or innocence. Evidence does. And the evidence here is circumstantial at best. My attorney has prepared a comprehensive brief showing. Mrs. Brennan, a simple yes or no. Do you feel any sympathy for Mr. DeSilva's condition? I feel sympathy for anyone who's been injured, but I also feel strongly that being accused of something I didn't do is... A yes or no, please. Victoria's expression shifts. The mask of composure cracks slightly, revealing something colder underneath. Your Honor, I feel that this line of questioning is inappropriate and designed to prejudice the court against me. My emotional response to a stranger's injuries has no bearing on whether I was driving the vehicle in question. Judge Caprio removes his glasses and sets them on the bench. Mrs. Brennan, I've been on this bench for 35 years. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen someone sit through a victim's testimony and treat it like an inconvenience. With respect, Your Honor, you're letting emotion cloud your judgment. This is exactly the kind of bias I was worried about. The courtroom goes silent. Even Gerald Hutchins looks uncomfortable. Judge Caprio's voice drops to that deadly quiet tone. Mrs. Brennan, are you suggesting that this court is biased against you? Victoria hesitates, then commits. I'm suggesting that the circumstances of my husband's political position may be influencing how aggressively this case is being prosecuted and how it's being received in this courtroom. I see. Judge Caprio leans back. Mr. Hutchins, does your client understand that she's questioning the integrity of this court? Gerald Hutchins stands quickly. Your Honor, my client is simply expressing concern about... I'm asking your client. Judge Caprio looks directly at Victoria. Mrs. Brennan, do you believe this court is biased? Victoria lifts her chin. I believe that everyone in Rhode Island knows who my husband is. I believe that creates inevitable prejudice, and I believe that you, Your Honor, are aware that my husband chairs the Judiciary Committee and has significant influence over judicial appointments and court funding. So yes, I think there's bias here. Just not the kind you're suggesting. The courtroom explodes. Judge Caprio calls for order. When silence finally returns, his expression has changed. The kind eyes have turned to ice. Mrs. Brennan, are you threatening this court? I'm stating facts, Your Honor. My husband's committee controls your budget. That's not a threat. That's civics. Judge Caprio stands, something he rarely does mid-hearing. Mrs. Brennan, I'm going to give you one opportunity to retract that statement. Victoria doesn't hesitate. Why would I retract the truth? Everyone in this room knows that judicial funding goes through the Judiciary Committee. Everyone knows my husband chairs that committee. Everyone knows that this court, like every court in Rhode Island, depends on that funding. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just reminding you of how government works. Gerald Hutchins is frantically writing notes and trying to get Victoria's attention, but she ignores him. Judge Caprio's voice is quiet but carries absolute authority. Mrs. Brennan, you have just implied that this court's decisions are influenced by political funding. That is not only false, it is contempt of court. Do you understand that? What I understand, Your Honor, is that I'm being railroaded because it's politically convenient, and I understand that my husband will be hearing about this. He'll be hearing about how his wife was treated in this courtroom, and I think you understand what that means. The courtroom is dead silent. Even Marcus DeSilva, sitting in his wheelchair, looks shocked. Judge Caprio picks up his phone. Bailiff, I need you to get State Senator Richard Brennan on the line. Now. Victoria's expression flickers, the first sign of uncertainty. What are you doing? You've mentioned your husband multiple times. You've implied his position gives you special treatment, so let's call him. Let's see what State Senator Brennan thinks about his wife threatening a sitting judge. I didn't threaten you. Bailiff, please dial Senator Brennan's office. I want him on speakerphone. Gerald Hutchins stands. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. I must object. Your objection is noted, Mr. Hutchins. Sit down. The bailiff dials. The phone rings on speaker, the sound filling the courtroom. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. A professional female voice answers, Senator Brennan's office, this is Melissa. This is Judge Frank Caprio from Providence Municipal Court. I need to speak with Senator Brennan immediately regarding an urgent matter. There's a pause. Judge Caprio. 1 moment, please. 30 seconds of hold music. Victoria's face has gone pale. She's whispering urgently to her attorney, who's shaking his head. Senator Richard Brennan's voice comes through the speaker. Judge Caprio, this is Richard Brennan. What's going on? Senator Brennan, I have your wife Victoria in my courtroom. She's facing charges of hit and run with serious bodily injury, and she's just spent the last 10 minutes implying that your position as chair of the Judiciary Committee gives her immunity from accountability, and that this court's funding depends on how I rule in her case. I'd like you to hear this directly. There's a long silence. When Senator Brennan speaks again, his voice is strained. Put her on. Judge Caprio gestures to Victoria. Mrs. Brennan, your husband would like to speak with you. Victoria approaches the bench slowly. Richard, this judge is... Victoria, did you just threaten a sitting judge by referencing my committee position? I didn't threaten anyone. I just pointed out the obvious political dynamics. Oh my God, Senator Brennan's voice cracks. Victoria, do you have any idea what you've just done? Richard, you're not understanding. This whole case is politically motivated. They're trying to... Stop! Just stop! The senator takes a deep breath. Judge Caprio, I'm still on speaker? Yes, Senator. Your Honor, I need to make something absolutely clear to this courtroom and to my wife. I have no involvement in this case. I have no intention of involving myself in this case. My wife's actions are her own. If she broke the law, she should face the consequences. If she threatened you or implied that my position would influence your ruling, she spoke without my knowledge or consent and does not represent my views or my office in any capacity whatsoever. Victoria's face drains of color. Richard, what are you? I'm choosing my oath of office over protecting you from your own choices. Victoria, that's what I'm doing. The senator's voice is heavy with emotion. Your Honor, whatever sentence you determine is appropriate, I fully support it. I will not use my position to interfere. I will not make phone calls on her behalf. I will not leverage committee authority. My wife endangered someone's life and then tried to hide behind my career. That's unacceptable. The courtroom is absolutely silent. Senator Brennan continues. Furthermore, I'll be releasing a public statement within the hour announcing that I'm recusing myself from any judicial funding discussions for the next 2 years to avoid even the appearance of retaliation. And I'll be requesting an ethics investigation into whether my wife's statements constitute attempted obstruction of justice. Victoria grabs the phone on the bench. Richard, you can't just abandon me. I'm your wife. And I'm a state senator who swore an oath to uphold the law. You hit someone and drove away, Victoria. You left a man bleeding in the street, and then you threatened a judge. I can't protect you from that. I won't. The line goes dead. Victoria stands frozen, staring at the phone. Then, slowly, she turns to Judge Caprio. This is your fault. You manipulated him. Mrs. Brennan, sit down. No! Her voice rises, the composure completely gone now. You orchestrated this. You called him knowing he'd throw me under the bus for political optics. This is exactly the kind of corrupt judicial activism that... Mrs. Brennan, sit down now, or I will have you removed from this courtroom. You can't intimidate me. I know my rights. I'll have you removed from the bench before the end of the week. My husband might have folded, but I have other connections. The governor owes me favors. The Attorney General's wife is in my book club. I will end your career. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. Bailiff, place Mrs. Brennan in custody for criminal contempt of court. Victoria backs away from the bailiff. You can't do this. This is illegal detention. Gerald, do something. Gerald Hutchins stands slowly, his face ashen. Your Honor, if I may. You may not, Mr. Hutchins. Your client just threatened a sitting judge multiple times in open court. That is criminal contempt. She's going into custody now. Victoria's handcuffed by the bailiff. She's screaming now. This is a setup. This is political persecution. Richard will fix this. He'll call the governor. You can't touch me. The bailiff leads her toward the holding area. Her voice echoes through the courtroom until the door closes. 20 minutes later, Victoria is brought back into the courtroom. She's no longer screaming, but her face is blotchy from crying, her makeup smeared. The Chanel suit is wrinkled. She looks 10 years older than she did an hour ago. Judge Caprio has reviewed additional evidence during the break. He now has Victoria's cell phone records, obtained via emergency warrant, showing she was on a call at the exact time of the accident. She was talking to a friend about the fundraiser luncheon, complaining about being late. The call dropped at 2:43:19 p.m., 2 seconds after the security camera captured the impact. Judge Caprio reads the sentence with measured precision. Victoria Ellen Brennan, you are hereby convicted of hit and run with serious bodily injury. You are convicted of leaving the scene of an accident, and you are convicted of criminal contempt of court for threatening a sitting judge. For the hit and run, you are fined $15,000. Your license is suspended for 3 years. You will serve 60 days in jail consecutive beginning today. For leaving the scene, an additional fine of $7,500, an additional 30 days in jail consecutive. For criminal contempt, an additional fine of $25,000, an additional 30 days in jail consecutive. Total fines, $47,500 total jail time, 120 consecutive days, 4 months. You will serve every single day. Upon release, you will complete 1,000 hours of community service working with traffic safety education programs, where you will tell your story to new drivers about the consequences of distracted driving and fleeing the scene. You will write a formal letter of apology to this court, which will be published in the public record. You will write a separate handwritten letter of apology to Marcus DeSilva to be delivered in person if he chooses to receive it. And you will pay $75,000 in restitution to Mr. DeSilva for medical expenses and ongoing care costs. Gerald Hutchins stands. Your Honor, 120 days jail time for a first offense is not a first offense, Mr. Hutchins. This is 3 offenses: hit and run, leaving the scene, contempt of court, and the contempt charge alone warrants 30 days. Your client threatened this court repeatedly and explicitly. She claimed she would end my career and referenced political connections as weapons. That's not protected speech. That's obstruction of justice. But, Your Honor, the sentence stands. Judge Caprio looks at Victoria, who's staring at the floor. Mrs. Brennan, do you have anything to say? Victoria's voice is barely a whisper. My husband will fix this. No, Mrs. Brennan, he won't. He made that very clear. You're going to serve this sentence, and maybe, somewhere in those 4 months, you'll have time to think about Marcus DeSilva lying in the street while you drove away. Victoria is taken into custody. As she's led out, she passes Marcus DeSilva in his wheelchair. He looks at her with something between pity and sadness. She doesn't look back. The video of the hearing goes viral within hours, not because someone leaked it, because Senator Brennan holds a press conference that afternoon, as promised, and plays audio from the courtroom phone call during his statement. Standing at a podium outside the State House, his voice thick with emotion, Senator Brennan says, "My wife endangered a man's life and then tried to use my career as a shield. I cannot maintain any integrity while protecting her from accountability. I love Victoria, but I cannot defend the indefensible. Judge Caprio showed more courage in that courtroom today than I've shown in 20 years of public service. He called my bluff, and I'm grateful he did." The press conference is shared 23 million times in the first 48 hours. Headlines across New England read, "Senator chooses oath over wife." Victoria Brennan gets 4 months jail after threatening judge. State Senator backs court against his own wife. The political fallout is immediate. 3 state representatives who were planning to challenge Senator Brennan in the primary withdraw from the race. His approval ratings spiked to 67%, the highest of his career. Voters across party lines praise his integrity, but it costs him. Victoria files for divorce from jail. She releases a statement through her attorney claiming Richard chose political ambition over family loyalty. Their marriage of 22 years ends while she's serving her sentence. Victoria Brennan serves her 120 days at the Adult Correctional Institution in Cranston. Her cellmate is a woman serving 6 months for her second DUI. They don't speak much. Victoria spends most of her time reading and writing in a journal. On day 37 of her sentence, Marcus DeSilva's daughter sends a message through the court system. Marcus has decided he would like to receive Victoria's letter of apology, but only if she delivers it in person after her release. He wants to look her in the eye when she says she's sorry. Victoria writes 17 drafts of the letter. None of them feel adequate. On day 90, she stops trying to make it adequate and just writes the truth. "I hit you and drove away because I was scared and selfish. I was more worried about embarrassment than your life. I'm sorry. It's not enough. It will never be enough, but it's true." 4 months later, Victoria is released. She's lost 28 pounds. Her hair's gray at the roots. She hasn't had professional highlights in 4 months. She looks like a different person. She meets Marcus DeSilva at a coffee shop in Fox Point, 3 blocks from where she hit him. He arrives in his wheelchair. She arrives on foot. Her license is still suspended. They sit at a corner table. She hands him the letter. He reads it slowly. "Why did you drive away?" he asks. "Because I was late for a fundraiser. Because I didn't want to deal with the consequences. Because I thought being a senator's wife meant I could avoid things normal people have to face." She's crying now. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to hear me say I'm sorry." Marcus folds the letter carefully. "I spent 3 weeks in the hospital. I'll never walk right again. My daughter had to take 3 months off work to care for me. You took that from me because you didn't want to be late for lunch. I know. But you served your sentence. You did your time. And you're here now, looking me in the eye. So I'll tell you what I told Judge Caprio when he called me last week to check on me. I hope you become someone different. I hope you become someone who stops at accidents. That's all I can hope for." Victoria nods. They sit in silence for a moment. Then Marcus wheels himself toward the door. He pauses. "For what it's worth," he says, "your husband did the right thing. And that took courage. Maybe you'll find some too." 2 years after her sentencing, Victoria completes her 1,000 hours of community service. She's given 127 talks at driving schools across Rhode Island, telling her story to teenagers learning to drive. Every time she tells it, she includes the moment she drove away from Marcus DeSilva lying in the street. Every time her voice breaks at that part, she never remarries. She never returns to political circles. She works as a paralegal at a small personal injury law firm, the kind that represents victims of car accidents. The irony is not lost on anyone, including her. When asked by a Providence Journal reporter on the second anniversary of her sentencing whether she's changed, Victoria pauses for a long time before answering. I don't know if I'm a better person. I know I'm a different person. I know that when I see someone cross the street now, I stop. Every time, even when I have the right of way, even when I'm late, I stop. Because I spent 4 months in jail learning that being late isn't the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing is looking at yourself in the mirror and knowing you left someone bleeding in the street because you couldn't be bothered to stop. Don't forget to subscribe for more courtroom justice stories where entitled defendants learn that political connections mean nothing when you threaten a judge who spent 35 years watching powerful people try and fail to intimidate justice. Hit that like button if you believe Judge Caprio delivered exactly the sentence Victoria Brennan deserved. Drop a comment about whether 120 days was too harsh, too lenient, or exactly right. This courtroom taught us that real power isn't about who you're married to or what committees they chair. Real power is about having the courage to hold people accountable, even when it costs you everything. And sometimes, the people who find that courage are judges who've seen it all and refuse to blink.